Hello and welcome back, everyone. We are going to be doing a little bit of a theory crafting session. It's going to be a shorter stream because I have a lot of stuff I have to do today, but we are taking requests as to what nations we want to take a look at the maps, take a look at the terrain, and think through what a start would be, where we want to maybe move the capital, where we think our advantages are, disadvantages are, largely on the basis of kind of our terrain sort of features that we have. And so, it's maybe worth going through these. Maybe we look at the spreadsheet, though, first. The spreadsheet is, of course, knows all. We can talk about it from this perspective. But in regards to vegetation, farmland or topography and climate, we can talk through these really quick as to what's really important. For vegetation, the dev growth is going to be something that is pretty important, where negative dev growth isn't... If you're going to have an industrial base, you don't want negative dev growth there, because that's going to be a limiting factor for you. How's it going, everyone? Hello, Shahensha. Hello, Scorpion Elder. We are taking requests. Hey, Vlad. Or Lacode. Hey, Matt. So this is going to be a very significant one that we care about. I think that food production percentage, you can get this in a bunch of other places as a modifier, so you're not really super committed to this. And then RGO size is actually a kind of nice modifier. Farmland is kind of just very obviously the best, but also pop capacity. The tiers are basically double the previous tier, right? 100 is double, 50, and then 50 is double 25, and so this makes a big difference, and it makes a difference for pop growth. A pretty substantive one, how big you can get these types of things, because one of the things that affects your population growth is how much available land you have. If you are under a certain percentage, and certain terrain limits you on whether or not you get this bonus. I'm not sure the exact rules. We're also taking general questions for EU5 as well. I have a question. Does aristocratic, plutocratic, spiritualist give a percentage of total population? We can take a look at societal values really quick. Agent 150, thank you for the follow, Big Dice. I said we could take a look at societal values real quick. I'm not sure this one gets shown in here. Aristocratic, plutocratic. I cannot show the game itself. I'm trying to remember exactly what aristocratic and plutocratic give. I have... Here, let's not show. Oh, maybe this is a little... Here. Let's have this... I can't show on screen. Right, we're capturing the browser, so I don't have to worry about that. We can talk about a little bit about what that is. So, on the version of the game where content creators made their videos on, plutocratic... Aristocracy gave potential nobles in towns and cities. This is a modifier that all power is based on the number of pops you have, and then it's weighted for those pops, so like nobles will have a much higher weight than peasants, and so possible nobles in towns and cities effectively is going to give more power over to the nobles. It gives nobles power plus percentage, monthly diplomats plus, and expected cost of courts plus. Overall, aristocracy is not very good, but there are some good... there are some good privileges that force you towards aristocracy, that make it so that, okay, you, if you are going to get some of these, you might as well just get a lot of them. And then later there's some privileges that push you back towards plutocracy. So I don't think you necessarily need to push plutocracy immediately, but you can push it a couple ages in. Plutocracy gives plus possible burghers in towns and cities, plus burgher power, plus trade efficiency, which I think is more valuable than the monthly diplomats, and expected cost, of course, is decreased. And then the other one you asked about was... And this is on the version of the game that content creators made the video on, which is the version I'm allowed to talk about. And Spiritualist versus the other one. What is the other side of Spiritualist? I forget. Spiritualist versus Humanist. Spiritualist gives possible clerics in towns and cities, plus 2% at max value. Pop conversion speed, plus 50%. Pop assimilation, minus 50%. And tolerance of true faith, plus 2. Tolerance of true faith plus 2 is actually really strong if you are monofaith. It's going to make satisfaction really high, especially if you are conquering lands that have not accepted culture, but accepted faith. But if you are deviating from that, it's going to start to become a humanist. It's going to be really good. You have a lot of opportunities in the Reformation age to start moving towards humanist, which gives you kind of the reverse, minus pop conversion speed, so you can't really convert pops anymore, and then plus pop assimilation speed. You also get tolerance of heretical and heathen beliefs plus 2, which again is a strong modifier. It's going to really help satisfaction a lot. Also, there are a lot of government policies that are locked behind, and I think this is one of the reasons you want to move towards certain values. There's a lot of government policies that are locked behind having a certain value. But if you guys want to see a specific country, feel free to let me know. We have maps on all these countries. Did you see Trump make fun of D-Day in the press conference with the German Chancellor? I don't remember him... I saw like a snippet or a quote that people were poking fun at, which wasn't him making fun of it. I think it was like worse, where he's like, "Yeah, that was a bad day for Germany, huh?" And he's like, and the Chancellor's like, "No, it was a pretty good one," because of course they had a dictatorship overthrown. My favorite run in EU4 was Ethiopia, where he took this and he thought that that'll be possible to recreate. So we have to look at East Africa, right? Or the Horn of Africa. So let's open this up so we can get kind of looking at a map. So this is the starting political situation here. Worth it to learn playing EU4 and prep for EU5, or skill set not transfer over. I don't have an EU4 skill set, so I don't really know. To the extent that I understand what's going on in EU5, a lot of it, or like I played, it's like a decade ago that I played EU4. I guess some of it's going to transfer over. Probably unit movement and this type of thing is very similar. Was admin focused nerfed on New Age? Admin focus in general just kind of moves you faster. If you're changing up stuff a lot, admin focus is good. If you're not, it doesn't really do anything. But we have this Ethiopian Empire. I actually took a look at Ethiopia playing as Ethiopian. They have a really rough situation in terms of terrain. Starting as an empire is nice, though. But in terms of terrain, they have, like, a mountain range that, like, splits them in half. And is, like, kind of a bit rough. So this is, the really, like, kind of critical characteristic here. Can we click F11 and... So, generally speaking, having a bunch of flatland and, is going to be nice. For a variety of reasons. Let's take a look at actually kind of the flatland modifiers. Flatlands, you have pop capacity is fine, but the really big one is that you are not going to have any... Is that not in here? Distance cost to capital is impeded by wetlands, hills, plateau, and mountain. Mountains gives like plus 50% a penalty. I think plateaus like 25 or 10%. and wetlands and hills, I think, are each 25%. So it's going to make it harder to get to your capital. And so that's going to be a little bit rough. Climate, it's not especially too crazily important. It gives you a percentage modifier for pop capacity is the biggest thing. The dev growth on tropical is substantive. You get negative dev growth. But percentage pop capacity is kind of an easy to find modifier. So with that kind of said, taking a look at this, the issue is this massive mountain range. And so now you're kind of thinking, I can put my capital on a mountain, which is going to make the capital worse, but then that means I can kind of get control in both directions on either side of the mountain. I can put my capital way to the side and commit to one side of the mountain versus the other. You have some good resources in Ethiopia, though. Taking a look at this, grasslands is going to be preferred. Woodlands is going to be, you're going to have to spend more movement to go through. And so you're starting to see that the centralized location, kind of where you want your empire, also has a bunch of bad terrain in it and a bad vegetation, and so it's going to be difficult to push control through either area. You're going to have to go through some not very good places. I forget where the rivers are at. The rivers are in awkward places too, and it pushes you because the rivers allow you to build a building called the Poundlock Canal, which functionally allows you to undo the extra 25% cost from woods. So it effectively turns woods into grassland, or it effectively turns hills into flatland, in terms of the map. But I think this is development. Yeah, development's also not too great. It's going to be 0 dev in all the places that have not yet been colonized, but ooh, we get natural harbors in here too. So having a capital on or near a natural harbor would also make sense. So if we think through, well, we have a harbor here and a harbor here, and we can move towards having a capital there. We could come back here, and we're going to say we're going to have it on desert, maybe, and that this desert is going to be... Okay, so we could either have a power base kind of into here, and then eventually we would propagate along the coast, or here, and eventually kind of propagate along the coast. So pushing the capital to the coast might make a lot of sense, but then we lose out on a lot of strength of the interior land type of thing. You think Merchant Republic should ignore crown power percentage for trade income? Venice has earnings 6-1 on trade. No. You can, because the distribution of crown power is based on percentage of, here, let's scroll to something for you guys to look at. The crown power percentage is based on, it's not the number of locations you have, it's the total population. So as long as you have a bunch of, like, kind of stuff dotting the coastline to allow you to spread merchant marine, because you need to have a control of a province, or sorry, a location to spread merchant marine, as long as you just have one location and a bunch of spots, so you can use a navy, and those locations have low population, and you have a huge population in Venice, then you're actually going to have relatively high control, you're going to have relatively high crown power, because control negatively affects crown power. And so if most of your population is at 100 control, you can kind of comfortably get up to like 30% crown power or something, 35%. And your estates having money is not like the end of the world. But you'll effectively have like double the crown power as other people if you play in a particular way as merchant republics. So I think it's fine. The general is live. It has been a little while. A little bit of a short screen. Screw theory crafting. You have a 500 hours by now. I have a little under 400. Either tell us you don't or do, huh? Either tell us what you know or don't. There's no more theory crafting. There's definitely theory crafting. How playing Lubeck different from the Hanseatic? Lubeck is, Hanseatic is a non-location owning country that you can play. Lubeck is a location owning country that is part of the Hanseatic League. So they're not competing in theory, I don't think. And by virtue of being in the Hanseatic League, you get some bonuses and this type of stuff. Does Spain Commonwealth get unique advances for forming? Yes. Will it be possible to promote a minority? Like if you want to take income, Venice, will it be possible? Yes, I think you can to my recollection, you could choose when you promote a culture, you could choose which one you promote. So you can take a minority, promote culture for them a whole bunch, and then eventually swap to that culture. Speaking of, these are languages, but speaking of, this dominant language and dominant language per country, okay. But here we have a bunch of different religions. We're probably going to, in terms of strategy, generally want to move in towards a Sunni direction. Something like this. Are there nations with disabled estates? Like, is there... No, not as far as I know. Is pop growth high pops always an advantage? Not necessarily. If you have a bunch of pops in places where you have low control or market access, that's probably not something you like really want, especially if the pops are like higher tier pops like nobles and clerics and this type of stuff. Black Death does reach Korea. Is it possible to give war in a war to give other countries land? Yes. If you mean conquer land on behalf of other countries, you can. I think you still get the infamy no matter what. But if we're thinking of the capital and we're thinking of having it here or here, that's going to really affect what resources are valuable. And we actually have salt and iron and gems. These are pretty good resources. So maybe we have the capital here, but then we're going to be relatively far away from the gold and iron and gold over here. And these are like the choicest resources. And this is the conundrum I was having when trying to figure out where to put the capital. Is I wanted access to this, and then I wanted access to the coast. And the terrain moving through this, if I recall correctly, isn't the most ideal. So if we have here, we're moving through sparse and grassland. Sparse and grassland is kind of okay. Actually, maybe this is kind of the strategy. We're moving through here, this type of stuff. We have relatively flat land. I think there's no river going through here, but maybe that's fine because it's going through flat land. And so maybe that's the play here, is we put our capital on here or here. We propagate control into here, and we make use of some of these good resources. Now, there's also gold down here, ivory down here, and a bunch of coffee here. Can you explain a bit how liturgical language affects research? So you get a 1.0 flat modifier that is going to... everyone gets that research, and then on top of that, you're going to get a modifier from your liturgical language, the most powerful liturgical language. Or I think it might just be based on your language power entirely. We'll give you a flat modifier where the person with the strongest language will be getting a flat value. In the version that we showed our video on, this value was 1. So you would have double the flat value if you started with Latin, and Latin remained the most powerful language. Is debt building OP in U5? I think a good way to think about it is Windows. If anyone has a different nation request that they want to take a look at, kind of for the start, feel free to put it down. I think, pending understanding where the rivers are, we'd probably want to have our capital somewhere in here, and then we would look to build an industrial base somewhere in here, and then we would be able to spread a solid amount of control all along kind of these coastal areas, and we would end up playing pretty naval heavy. Another option would be capital in here and playing land heavy, but I don't think that's as good. As Somalia was Muslim at the time, the only parts are Ethiopia are still Orthodox. That's another issue that you have, is you have a bunch of different cultures and different religions. It's going to be difficult to keep everything together. You're going to have a lot of unrest if you like conquer the entire Horn. Good to see you live again. Hey Ivar, how's it going? Currently busy, but hope to join soonish. Oh, it's got to be soon because this is a short stream because we got a lot of stuff to do. Enjoying your content a lot. What aspect or feature of the game is still lacking in terms like substance or meager in sense? So I'm not allowed to talk on the most recent version, and what about it. And so if I say what I think is a problem now, that kind of implies to some extent what's changed. I'm trying to think what exactly I could say. There was... The one thing I left feedback for, or there's two things I left major feedback on before, when I first had access to the game, that I wanted to see changed. And one of them was not very important to me, and the other one was kind of important to me, was I wanted an automation system. And so I think that or an auto-expand kind of feature, and that for me, at that time, was something that I wanted to have access to, is be able to put down a heuristic or set up a heuristic for expanding and then not have to manually do that particular expansion based on that heuristic. So if the input goods are sufficiently low in price, if there's labor available at that location, other types of parameters, then that location automatically builds additional levels of buildings, was the idea. Can you share something on China? China, we took a look at China. China is absolutely wild. Oh, did we just click on Horn of Africa rather than... Okay. China is absolutely massive. The maps on them are massive. They start out with like 8... we don't have an updated China map. They start off with like 8 markets, and it's just this enormous thing. Yeah, the map already looks different and looked different on the version that we made our video on. Like, there's a bunch of tiny little subjects, this type of stuff. And I know the resources are quite a bit different for China, so we will focus less on the resources, as much as we will focus on kind of the terrain and this type of stuff. But China, you are just fundamentally not going to have an enormous control everywhere just because it's so big. Granada's the hardest nation. Do them, please. Take a look at Granada. Castile is maybe more interesting, because Granada, you don't have too many locations. But we could take a look at Iberia. We could actually talk through Iberia. Iberia, I think, is a really interesting example. But we have this flatland area, right, that's mostly along the coast, and we're not going to want to have our capital there. So we're already kind of setting up, okay, if we want it kind of on the coast, and we want it by flatlands, we're thinking maybe somewhere middling on the coast, we can get the most possible control, and then maybe we are inland a little bit, and we have a big industrial base, something like this, and we just commit to having a really big industrial base inland, or we go on the coast and we commit to trying to have our industry on the coast. One of the issues we see is these hills and mountains, difficult to propagate control to. So we're probably in this pocket in terms of evaluating what we want. Subtropical and continental, this is good and fine. Grasslands, this is good. And also, we have some farmland. Now, there's more farmland in the version that we played the Korea video on. And then if we take a look at dev, we see the dev's kind of in this pocket. So we're seeing where we're getting kind of pushed towards, right? And so let's take a look at the harbors. We have some good harbors here, here, and here. So having our capital in one of these places, these 3 locations, is probably going to be what we want to do as China. And then here is the resource map mode. Now, unfortunately, resources have changed quite a bit, but it was like here, here, and here. And so has vegetation. So here's the best looking resources down here, and it's like halfway up and down the coast, so you'll probably be able to spread a pretty solid amount of control along the coast. And then you have to decide if you want to be inland and play more land-oriented, or if you want to be coastal and try and like play into your coastal areas. But here's the thing that's crazy about playing China. Can USA appear? Yes. Here's the thing, is like managing 8 markets simultaneously is feels absolutely insane at game start, and it's like it's very intimidating to like load up China. Do you think there will be a culture manager for Spanish and Native American cultures emerged to create Mezi culture? I don't think so, but I'm not sure. It might be the case that when you form a nation, you culture swap. Oh, there's a culture merging mechanic. I don't know too much about it. I didn't get to play with it at all. Can you rename provinces? I don't think you can. Have you tried Castile? I have. Castile, I think, is really interesting in terms of the start. I was actually going to reference it in the video. How much has changed from the version you are playing now from the last one? I can't comment on this. I can't comment on the version I've played most recently. in the differences between the previous version. So, but let's take a look at Iberia, because we are talking about Spain a little bit here. And I think that there's one incredibly interesting thing about, so generally speaking, provinces in Europe tend to have 3 to 5 locations in them. And there's a few exceptions. And how many locations are in a province? And this won't necessarily be on release or this type of thing. Really affects how good the cabinet action development growth is, because that affects all provinces in a location. So if you have more than 5 locations, this is going to make deving really good. Sevilla and Cordoba both have an enormous amount of locations, and Sevilla has a really, really good natural harbor. And so I think as terms of building a power base, Spain is just hyper-polarized, or this region's hyper-polarized, that Sevilla is just like really, really good place to put a capital, and strikes me as one of the top 5 places in Europe that really stand out. I think there's 10 locations in Sevilla and like 8 or 9 in Cordoba, and there's a river that passes through here and loops up, and so the fact that you are going to be along the river and you can use development, because development also gives minus cost capital. So if you have 50 dev, that's minus 50% cost capital, and if you have are along a river and you have pound-lock canals, that's minus another 25%. You stack minus 20%, that's minus 95%. You've hit the kind of the magic number where it only costs you 1 movement, so that's effectively a loss of 1 control every time you move. So you can have like 100 control all along this line. Except terrain is going to negatively impact that, but you could still be relatively high. You can see this is also flatland, so this is going to be a flatland area, and then it leads into plateaus, which is not quite as good as flatland. I think it's like minus 10% in terms of the move cost, but you are going to snake through the flatland in terms of the river, and you can see it's a long farmlands. A little bit of snag hitting the wood, but the zip is like just, it feels super nice. Now thinking of Granada has a bunch of hills and mountains. Not a good place for a capital. Does USA have any content? I believe it does, but I haven't taken a look at it. MS Paint, basically. In your Korea analysis, you mentioned that EU5 trade is a good simulation of the extractive nature of colonialism. What do you mean by that? I mean that someone in every trade node, or let's call it in every market, the outgoing goods are controlled by the person who has the trade advantage in that market. What you can do is, as a European, you can acquire a lot of trade advantage in markets that you don't have a lot of land in. So the outgoing trade is controlled. Generally speaking, these places that are like in the third world and this type of stuff will have low industrial bases, and they will have low market access, which makes the RGOs, or the resources, the primary source of value, and trading those resources. And if you can get trade advantage in those areas, despite not owning the land, you can extract most of the value that that land has to offer. And that's what I mean by the extractive nature, is they still get like the benefit of pushing up the prices of those RGOs, and so they make a little bit more on the tax on the RGOs, but the majority of the value is going to be going to you as the European. The start date is pre-Ming. Yes, it's Yuan. Can you merge markets? You can delete markets, which effectively will merge them. Do you feel like something like Holland will be good for the first run? Yeah, Holland will be fine. Knowing how to expand a little bit in the HRE will be kind of useful. So it'll be a little bit of a speed bump, but it'll be fine. It's fine enough. Can you boot up the game and just play? I could violate my NDA. Hey, Playmaker. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully I'm not too far behind. How you doing? Have you played a Republic yet? If so, can you say how they're played? I did not play a Merchant Republic for very long. This is kind of the one thing on that top 16 list I didn't take a super, super close look at. But my opinion is that you create like a base of power that is really, really small and tight, and you keep it that way so that you can have really high control on the majority of your population, and then all around, or thinking of Venice, and then all around the Mediterranean, you try and have one location in a bunch of spots. Like, see this farmland down here? This would be perfect. That allows you to, on either side of the sea zone, develop merchant marine, and so you try and have the minimal amount of locations while developing a ton of merchant marine, and in this way you can get control of all the trade with trade advantage, and then still have a lot of crown power to extract a lot of value from that trade, because a majority of your population is under high control, because you haven't gotten a ton of population just by taking one location instead of taking entire provinces. Although I think this playstyle is probably weaker than taking big areas. And then you have if you take more land, you just give it to subjects or something like this. Why did Spain's capital end up in Madrid then? Are they stupid? I mean, his story? I think it's better in terms of the game mechanics. I think it's better in Sevilla. So Madrid would never be good in game? No, this isn't necessarily true. You have this big ass farmland area. A river cuts through here. Up here is kind of okay. I just think Sevilla just stands out so much because of the provinces that are so. This is like 10 locations, and like this is significantly less locations, and so Dev Province and Sevilla, Cordoba combined, I think, is really, really good. And then we have some good resources up here, but wheat is mainly where the farmland's at. I think there's gold up here. It might not be on this map, though. There's silver down here, next to Sevilla, but also relatively good resources around Sevilla, too. Distinctive about Spain is they have quite a bit of lumber and quite a bit of mineral resources both. So the overall resources for Spain are pretty solid. They actually have like one of the best resource distributions while not having like a ton of gold or spices or something like this. Spain seems like it's going to be hard to expand in any direction. France to the north, Muslims to the south, Italians to the east. Don't you mean easy? You get less, not infamy, the aggressive expansion if you, like, swap back and forth between, two different religion groups, so I think that's gonna be good for expansion. Does this mean you always want to merge markets? No, because, lack of market access is really, really bad, and so if you have just one huge market, you're gonna have low market access. Do you think it's possible to do a world conquest? It seems really hard now. Yes. Which country would be the beginner nation to play if there is any? I don't know. Someone that has one market, and is almost the entirety of the market. Hungary comes to mind. Mali, I guess, is relatively isolated, but people will probably want to rumble in this type of thing. So Hungary comes to mind. So does Aragon. The problem with Spain is that they have like two markets, and that might be a little bit confusing on learning the economic. Paradox allows men to stream, and my life is yours. If they allow it, I'll do it. This is like a really quiet portion of that song. Did you experience something interesting with Succession, like heirs fighting each other in civil wars? We got a couple civil wars, but there's not like crazy mechanics like CK or something like this. Did you complete the world's first EU5 world conquest? No, I'm not gonna like... That's not a achievement I like... Play asking the troll question, because he knows that's like not something I care about. If GDP were tracked, like, I would care more about being, like, first one to a billion or 10 billion or whatever, GDP. Stopping by to say your Civ 7 Theorycrafting vids were gold. I hope you find your way back. This month's update should be spicy. I appreciate it. One of the problems is that the audience for Civ 7 is really small. And my videos weren't doing all that good. Oh no, Civ 7 fans, yeah. Right now, the Civ 7, actually managed to decrease the player base for Civ 6 while simultaneously having like a quarter of like the Civ 6 player base. I don't know, Civ 7's a rough spot. And I'm also busy with both this and Victoria 3, which is why today, one of the reasons why today's stream has to be short. How would you say it's played in Mesoamerica? Losing 95% of your pops seems like it's going to be super miserable, and that's what happens. So if you could delete markets if there's market capital for each market, it does give some sort of benefit being closer to the market cap, like control or cheaper goods. Yeah, it gives a benefit similar to control. So if you are far from the market, I think we will have markets in here. If you are far from the market capital, you produce less goods and buildings. We don't have the markets in here. You produce less goods and buildings. Let's find... The regular Iberia map should have it. But you produce less stuff in buildings, and you get less tax base for RGOs. So RGOs, you still produce one of the RGO good. You just get... Oh, now it's 2 markets. There's like... there's Sevilla, and then there's one up here. But if you're close to Sevilla, and let's say these are 80 or 90%, you'll produce 80 or 90% of the goods per building. If you're far, and let's say this is 50%, you'll produce half the goods per building. This is really, really significant slowdown. And when added with control, if you have 50 control and 50% market access, your buildings are going to be worth a quarter of their value, effectively speaking. Like, a little oversimplification, but that's a big deal. And so by having more places with high market access, this helps this out. The trade-off is that having more of this is like a little bit rough. Does Andalusia have special events? Yes. This looks like a Imperator map with all those tribes. Bohemia is insanely strong. Start a nation. Are they, I think they have their own market too. I think there's other people in their market, but that's, Bohemia seems like a good shout. Hungary's resources are really good. I feel like I wouldn't want to recommend HRE if I could for a beginner. But maybe Bohemia's probably good too. Portugal may be a good starting one. I don't know if I'd recommend Portugal because they have a market that splits in half, like right here. And that might be a little bit confusing. The economic side is like, I think the economic side is going to be what's like hard for people, and like having a split market I think is not what you want. Having played an army-based... I haven't played at an army-based country. I can't comment on it at all. You should wear your Johann wig. That's not a Johann wig. That's a Guy Fieri wig. I love that people think it's a Johann wig, though. That's hilarious. It's not a Johann wig. Hello, fellow EU5 enjoyers. Well, are they really enjoyers if they haven't played yet? Right, Playmaker? What's the strongest country in Europe so far? Depends if you consider the Ottomans in Europe. Who do we think is the strongest in Europe? I think Castile's really strong. I think it's not France or England. Well, I think Castile's stronger than both. I'm trying to think if there's anyone I would rate higher than Castile. Being Emperor is pretty good too. So, Bohemia, I think. Yeah, I think Bohemia might be a reasonable choice. See, the thing is, Bohemia just by themselves is probably going to be weaker than Castile. But you have the whole HRE and some of those mechanics. So the thing is like, you can unify HRE. And if you're unifying the HRE, then you have, like, all of Germany. So, it depends on what you mean by your question. Like, full min-max, it's probably someone in the HRE. Stan is king, thank you for the follow, big dice. I think that in terms of starts, this is something that we are going to, talk about. in a video. In terms of starts, I think Brandenburg has one of the best places for a capital, so we can maybe talk through this a little bit kind of quickly here. How are all these maps different? But yeah, the Bohemia is probably the strongest start in the HRE. So if you're thinking that you just form Germany, or sorry, if you form the HRE, that's probably a good shout. I don't know what happens with the 100 Years' War exactly. Maybe the strongest start, England could also be considered a strong start if you could get a PU over France really easy. I don't know how that flavor works. HRE is not EU4 HRE, it doesn't really have negative impact. Yeah. France is in a rough spot because they have a bunch of subjects and they don't own their own land, and they kind of have some like internal stuff, so they're a little bit slower to start. Getting close to release, can't comment on that. Does Portugal have good flavor? Yes. Does Aragon hold Sardinia at the start? They hold some of it. What do you think of a Mamluk start? Is there economic resources limited by starting resources? Yes. This is something I've left feedback on. I think that the lack of wood in the Middle East specifically is just like bone-crushingly crippling for them. Because wood is a bit of like overly important resource. Because wood, almost all RGOs are built with wood. And this makes it so this is the thing that we were wanting to maybe comment on. Is this obviously one province? This map doesn't have it the way it is in-game right now. In-game, this is like one province. This like wide area. It's like a 10-location province. And there's a river that flows through here, and like a river that flows through here, so it perfectly bridges the two rivers. So if you have your capital in Berlin, this entire area you could reasonably get to like 100 control. Which is like kind of very interesting. So if you wanted to play tall in the HRE, like Brandenburg seems like really, really good. Is it possible to give France a preference on buying stuff in your market? Like, do they get a higher priority? It's based on market access, not based on nation. But you can affect who gets into your market, and so you can make it harder or easier for France to have their locations in your markets. France is weakened by the fact they have so many vassals. Are there unique mechanics with them? I think they have some unique stuff going on, but the France is... see if we can find this. France is like got this going on. France has one of the really good places for a capital too. Paris, they have like a bunch of grassland, flatland, and rivers running through. I think that they don't have good locations for using developed province, and this maybe counts against them a little bit, but the actual terrain, it's almost all flat. Mercy's imagining play EU5 again, basically. Hey, thank you for the 2 Canadian play. So is Carthage a formable or not? In the version that we played when we made the Korea video, which is the version we can comment on, it was not a formable. We were very sad about it. Otherwise, I would have done a run with them. Would it be beneficial for Portugal to make a market in Lisbon? Maybe. Probably. Or wherever you decide to have your capital in Portugal. These farmlands are really, really strong. Rivers flow through here, and it's farmland, flatland. And this is some of the, like, one of the densest areas of farmlands. And I think that one of these is, like, got 4 or 5 locations in a province on the farmland. So deving that up is pretty strong. And then you can't really see it, but getting into the lowlands too, this is relatively, like, high-value territory, and you can... make good use of it if you have like capital in Paris, because you can get out to the coast pretty easy. And so I think that France has really, really good terrain. Corbett is like 6'2". Is he really? I know he's taller than me. I didn't realize he was that much taller than me. Wait, what did someone say about Corbett? Also, can you confirm that Corbett is 5'7" when you fed him in Spain? No, I think he's taller than me. I remember him being taller than me. Yeah. And I'm 5'10". I don't know if I'd say 6'2". One of the problems is, like, people who are taller, is my experience, tend to slouch more. I have a friend who's 6'4", but he doesn't, like, look 6'4", because he, like, slouches a bit. Is there any way to increase market accessibility? Roads affect this? Yes, roads affect this. This is something I left feedback on, though, because it seemed like roads are, like, the only thing that affect it. So, like, if you have a if you have a market capital on an island, docks and you know, naval infrastructure don't seem to affect it on the version that we played. What do you think about India? Would it be powerhouse, especially considering all the Indian ocean exploit? I think India is really, really strong. I think if you're talking about global strength, yeah, as Playbreaker suggested, like, forming the HRE is just really strong. But I think India is also really high up there. Specifically, Vijayanagar, which has really good, like, advance for developing a lot of control, and I think we could talk about this, we just can't talk about the game balance. We played an India game, and I was very impressed with them. Where's provinces? And specifically... Oh, we can't zoom in more. Tragic. Specifically right in here. The better place for a capital might end up being, like, up here somewhere. I could see that because you could get to the coast easier regarding the terrain. But right here, if you take these 4 provinces, they have a combined number of locations equal to, like, 50. So if you dev these, your devs are, like, worth 5x what Europe is, and it's all in, like, a circle around the capital, so your control is just absolutely insane. You can, like, coast to coast 100 control. So, you say colonialism and trying to go full trade as Portugal is viable gameplay? Yes, but I would say that colonialism takes forever to really pay out. And you, like, have to like, actively push for slavery really hard, really fast, for it to pay out faster. If you have access now, please consider playing tall in the lowlands. I did already. My thoughts on the region? It's got some really good lands, and ability to propagate quite a lot of control. I think it's, pretty strong for playing tall. How can you play tall when it's so fun to paint? It's, you are surrounded by line go up enjoyers, Playmaker. We care about the line, not the paint. Which country won in your polls? Some banking nation? Yeah. I definitely took a look at the banking nations. I'm not going to comment too much on them, though. Is there a reason to have your market capital different than your country capital? Yes. If you have 2 markets, you will have 2 radiuses of market access, so it's possible to have your capital in between 2 markets, such that in this way you maximize like cross-section of control and market access. I think in general you want your capital to be where market capital is, though. But like theoretically, I think it can make sense. Is taxation a lesser amount compared to trade? This is public knowledge. Trade's been really significantly nerfed, such that you get like 20% of the income that you used to, and like the rest goes to the estates. Can you take a look at England? Yeah. Let's take a quick look at England. Wow, there's so many in here. Maybe we'll run a little bit longer, but I just can't do a long stream today. So, First thing, relatively high amount of flatlands. You're thinking of having your capital in London. I don't think it's worth moving it from London. I think the lowland's really good territory, and being able to propagate control across there and eventually take some lowland territory, I think is good. And then also, it's relatively in a good location with regards to being able to road to the flatland that's inland. And then you are obviously an island, so most of your control propagation is actually just going to be through navals. So it's not as important what everything is, just how close everything is to the coast. You look 6'5", I am like 5'10", 5'11" on a good day. But I know people who are 6 feet tall that I'm the same height as. But yeah, ton of farmlands in here. I don't think it's still farmlands like this. I'm not sure. But we have quite a bit of wool in here. We have some lumber as far as resources go. Is this the updated version? I don't think this is the updated version. I think England looked a little bit different. Yeah, this wasn't the updated version. But we still have a bunch of the flatlands here. Yeah, the farmland looks a little bit different, where it's mostly up in here. When we took a look at England, we devved up here. Because it was like 6 location province or something. And then... court language is France. Something I would love to see in a Paradox game in the future would be a usable land system like Victory with the ability to change land type. This is something a lot of people have been requesting. I think it's eventually get implemented in EU5. I just don't think it's going to be on release. But yeah, so wool is, as far as food stuff goes, wool is probably... Wool and rice are the two best. Wool because like it's actually useful as inputs for other stuff, and so you have a ton of wool and you have a decent amount of lumber and also mineral resources. So overall, I think with just having the saffron here, and I think there's silver over here. Without having, or there's silver down here. Without having too many like super premium resources, your resources in England are just super good. What's the difference between canals and roads? Roads decrease, so the base cost to travel a distance is 40. Roads decrease that by a flat amount. Canals reduce it by a percentage amount. If you stack if you stack a really high percentage, it's more valuable, but if you can't stack a lot of it, roads are just way more valuable. What do you do for your job this? Is there a separate river map in the game? There is. There isn't any like public river map modes for this. And the river map mode lags a lot on the version of the game that we played with Korea. So are you allowed to say how you felt trade on the last version played? No, I'm not allowed to talk about the last version. I cannot talk about the differences between the two versions. I think I could talk about my runs as long as I don't like mention anything like too specific about how they were different or this type of thing. How difficult is it to expand colonialism as France simultaneously? Well, colonial expansion is not hard. It just requires gold. I guess it requires some investment in the tech tree. And so if you feel like you have to go mil-tech as France, you're going to delay your colonialism, but eventually you get to that point in the tech tree anyways, so it's not very hard. It just requires a little bit of investment. The thing is, it doesn't pay off for a long time. Can you argue with devs to add GDP? I've requested this. To the extent that argument can be had, I've already mentioned it. I still think it's fun to see me and you play EU5. We are actually playing the most opposite way possible. Yeah, Playmaker just map paints, and I'm super indifferent to how much of the map is painted. So it's just like the complete reverse. And the conversations are like two ships sailing past each other that night. Like, where he's like, it's super easy to map paint, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not good. And he's like, yeah, but it's so easy. And it's like, whether or not it's like there's not a disagreement on whether or not it's easy or whether or not it's good or bad. It's just like or there's some like disagreement, but like the point is like it's just completely different like discussion that we're both having like at each other to some degree. Trade is now a way to make taxes better. I could say that trade was nerfed because that's public information. And so if trade is nerfed, then taxes, like, by definition, are just going to become, like, way more important. Have you played Monastic Order yet? I've not. How else can we find out if banking nation can cause great civil war of the Grand Republics? I don't know. Johan's super active. Like, if you just, like, float something, you might be able to get an answer from him. Do you think it'd be easier for the Mamluks player to take areas south of it for some wood RGOs? Hey, thank you for the 5 PLN e-tour. Thank you so very much. Big nice. How did I not hear the notification? It's very hard to keep up with you guys in chat right now. But let's take a close look at the Mamluks. The Mamluks, I think, are going to be actually... if I had to, other than countries on the Arabian Peninsula, in terms of countries that should be stronger and are just actually going to be super weak, I think the Mamluks are going to be one of them, because it's kind of hard to get a lot of wood as the Mamluks. Although, you could put, like, wood buildings along the, which aren't as good as RGOs, along the, what is it, not the Canal, the Nile. So it's not, like, apocalyptic. Like, some areas in Persia and Arabia are just, like, apocalyptically bad. Like, I don't even know how you would get that start going. Provinces is important, though. I think the best place for the capital, or, sorry, Alexandria, like, right here has really good, natural port, and so I think that's probably a solid place for the capital, but you could also make an argument down in here so that you can have a nice control ring. But I think Alexandria is going to be good. You propagate control along the Nile, you're pretty good with it. Are you map painting again? Yeah, we're trying. MSA paint. Tell us about your games, please. I played a really deep game. I can't comment too specifically on any changes made between, or I can't comment at all on changes made between the two versions, but I could say that I made a deep run on, I think I can. Yeah, because I'm not saying anything about the game itself. I made a deep run on Netherlands and India. What's the last version number? I can't talk about that. Is it too easy to expand? My perception with the Korea version was that it's extremely easy to expand. Especially with personal unions. You could just, like, annex... Like, my Korea video, I thought about annexing both China and Japan. But then I thought that would have just, like, undermined kind of the video in a significant way. It'd been, like, silly. You need to try out the Timurids, though you probably would play tall as the Timurids. That's right. That's right. We're hoarding by staying in one spot. This is exactly it. But yeah, Johan, like, responds to so many comments. Guys just missed 5 Polish gold. Yeah. Can you argue with the devs to add something that would make countries give more market access to other nations to import stuff from their own trade node? It'd be great if you could pick who buys your products. That would undermine the system they have for trade advantage, though. Right now it's determined through trade advantage. And it's like kind of winner takes all-y. But yeah, see a lot of flatland. This is good for propagating control. One of the problems with Alexandria is its wetlands. But the interesting thing is you could put your capital on bad terrain. Because the way the connections work, it's the province you're connecting to, not the province you're coming from, that matters as far as propagating control, I think. And so you probably want to move capital to Alexandria. And then you see, this is the good news. The good news is here. The good news is farmland everywhere. Bro, I love this bald man. Hey, OPB, how's it going? Wow. We got 2 other YouTubers in the chat? It's crazy. But it's not relevant because the game will change so much, yeah. Is the game more or less fun compared to the last version? I can't comment on the difference between the two versions. Nice try. Alexandria, I think, is up here. So it has a decent amount of dev. And then we have harbors. Alexandria is like one of these. Alexandria had the best natural harbor, but also, I think actually the node you're connecting to might be the one that matters. I'm not 100% sure whether it's both matter, where you're going out from, or the place you're connecting to, or both. I'm pretty sure the one you're connecting to matters, and so it's connecting to, or connecting to leaving from. But you see, pretty good base, harbor here, harbor here, harbor here. You're really going to be able to stretch a lot of control, like out to like this area, or like this Y-shaped area. And so, I think that maybe the Mamluks are fine. I just like tried to play as them in the regards to the resources, and there's like actual 0 lumber in their main thing, and they have like a market here, and then there's like a market over here, and there's like 2 lumber over here. There's a little bit of gold down here, which is pretty nice. Overall, the resources aren't too crazy. You are gonna have just absolutely insane amount of food, good growth, but like the salt is good, the marble's good, the gold is good, the iron's good, the copper's good. But these resources are on places that are going to dev really slowly because they're like desert and this other type of stuff. And so overall, just not as good. The farmland is going to be pretty solid, but the farmland you have here is almost all food stuff. The sugar is going to be good. The rice is good because it's better, or gives you a lot more food per each. But yeah, the value of the land you have down here isn't too valuable. Down like here, it's not like necessarily too valuable, and then like along the coasts, it's like kind of medium-ish. So the thing is that your advantage, I think, is you are in one of the best locations for being able to do trade stuff down into here, while simultaneously having access to the Mediterranean. Jonas, can you talk about downstream and upstream effect of rivers? It's unclear to me. You get more... it's easier to go downstream than it is to go upstream. Rivers provide, like, a base benefit. It's not really that well represented in the UI, though. So I can't talk about it too specifically, because I actually don't know specifically the advantage. Can you say when you can show gameplay from the current version? Unambiguously, I'm allowed to clarify that it does not appear to be the case that I will be able to show from the second version I received to play any content whatsoever. It seems that I will not be able to show any video or screenshots or anything like this. The entire purpose was me leaving UI feedback, and that's what I did. Vic 3 fewer new trading system looks better than... Vic 3 new trading system looks better than EU5 IMO. I think they're different. I think that for a globalization perspective, EU5 might not have it, but from a regional perspective, EU5 system is more appropriate to EU5 level of globalization, and Vic 3 is probably more appropriate. TJ and Hans Clue, thank you for the... Hopefully I read that right. Thank you for the follow, Big Nice. Do you relate to One Punch Man? Not too well. You're both bald and strongest man on Earth. I might be the strongest Paradox YouTuber. And I mean physically strongest. And by might, I mean... I'm pretty confident I am. But I could be mistaken. Did any helpful discussions on UI improvement cause changes during your recent access? I gave feedback. I think that they liked the feedback. I don't think I could comment on it too specific. I can't comment specifically on stuff that they say, though. So I can't give anything specific. Not a lot of YouTubers have publicly said that they've gotten access. I don't want to like out the YouTubers that were given access if they don't want to be outed. But there weren't many of us asked back, so that implies to me that they liked my feedback on the first run. Alexandria has natural harbor. It looks black, right? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it had a better natural harbor before, and then this is a little bit green. This might be Alexandria right here over. I think this might be Alexandria, but it's not like this bright green, super good harbor green. Is river better than coastline for control? It's a saturation thing. If you have a ton of rivers and a little coast, having one more coast isn't going to be useful. If you have a ton of coast and like less inland stuff, then one river is not going to be that useful. That makes sense. Can you create the Suez Canal? I don't think so, but I'm not sure. You got a favorite nation yet? I enjoyed playing Korea. I think they're kind of OP. Mali was really interesting. Mali might be my favorite. Into your happy Saturday. Hey, can you theorycraft Poland region? Yeah, we can look at Poland. Let's look at Poland. Is creating a second city to act like a control source viable? No, you can't get like an enormous amount of control coming out from a second city. China has some mechanics that some of its locations give extra control. Let's find Poland here. You did say Poland, right? Yeah. Where's Poland? Are we just blind? We're always blind. I always feel blind when I... See, I know that some of you guys have seen it. And you're like, journalist, it's right there, but I haven't seen it. I'm 100% sure they have a Tinto map that includes Poland. Yeah, it's Poland in the Baltic. So I assume you're talking more about Poland specifically down here rather than the entire region. Did you play Golden Horde? I did not play the Golden Horde. I haven't played any Hordes yet, so I can't comment too much on it. I know that they kind of just get to take land. But that's not that much surprising. How do you feel the AI usually fights the 100 Years' War? It feels super stalematey. I've had a bunch of runs where it just goes on for like 200 years. It's like, yeah. I feel like it's very much unlikely that England AI could replicate winning battles outnumbered against France. I don't think I've seen England look like they are getting the better side of it, so... This is this markets? What is this? Dynasties. Okay. This is locations, right? We care about provinces a little bit here. It's difficult to tell with this map, but if there are places that have a ton of locations in a single province, that really matters. I can't really see it too much, though. Or it's difficult. You have to, like, either look at it in-game or, like, cross-reference repeatedly. So let's focus a little bit more on terrain and this type of stuff. They're not meant to facilitate the same type of trade, yeah. Yeah, so, like, it's going to... You're going to have to pay a lot more to trade long distances. And, like, Victoria 3, also, the economics reward volume, whereas the economics of EU5 reward specificity more. So getting the right resources versus just massing a bunch of economic activity. A ton of flatlands, so this is really good. I'm trying to keep in mind where exactly Poland is on this map, right? Poland is this area, so we have this area here. It looks like this is promising maybe a place to move a capital. I think that this might have not been Poland, but it's going to be kind of centrally located in terms of what you're caring about. It's central Poland right here, right? And then if we take a look here, this is all flatland, which is promising. And if we take a look at the vegetation, this kind of area in here is probably pretty good. It's next to a bunch of these farmlands. Nice industrial looking base. Obviously you can move eventually to the coast and then you can really focus on the Baltics, but that's going to be a big strategic decision. Like, you can move to the coast and focus on the Baltics, or you can stay here and stay land focused. Whether you focused on land or on let's get rid of some of these. Whether you focus on land or not is going to make a big difference. We have land versus naval here. No, we don't. But you can propagate control along land better if you focus land. So Poland focusing land makes a lot of sense here, having their capital in here. Just kind of looking at this, but we care about the resources a lot here. And so Poland's like around here. We do see some silver. Silver's really strong. Lead is also pretty good. And a ton of iron and a ton of wool. So resources here look good without having a ton of the OP resources. Amber is also quite good though. Yeah, so moving your capital up into here is also just like intriguing. So you can expand to the Teutonic Order, move your capital up here, and then look to create. Yeah, so I think that there's going to be like two playstyles that you could really do in terms of playing Poland. Just kind of looking at this. You can tell us if you had fun though, right? I think so. I think that's allowed. I had fun. I had a lot of fun. How much can you lift? I can squat. Squat's probably my best lift that people are aware of what a squat actually is. And I can squat 685 or 675 pounds. I forget which. That's crazy that I don't know which it is. I used to say that if someone doesn't know their exact max, that they're like 100% lying about what it is, but I can't remember which it is. I could bring up a video of me squatting that much though. 100% koi fish could get you if you started bulking though, but wait, are you saying koi fish is stronger than me? That's possible. I have no like frame of reference of koi fish is jacked, but if he's more jacked than me, then I guess. It's a shame about the Islam TikTok talk. I haven't looked at it yet. Basically, the only part of EU4 is Islam mechanics, while being marginally better. They also barely responded to feedback in the Tinto talk. That's unfortunate. I don't have the context on which to kind of comment on this. Overall, Poland does look really nice, though. Like, because you have this pocket of really good-looking land. And also, I think that having access to a ton of lumber is going to make your gameplay super smooth. Maybe this is actually a reason to suggest specific nations, is if you have access to lumber, you don't care about timing windows as much, and its overall feels a lot more smooth. You were given access for your wide feedback, clearly. Yeah, they just chose the people who are polarized. Fleury has also publicly said that he has access, so Fleury also had access. Fleury's like, feedback in the initial run was like the inverse of mine. He like left feedback on like all this is vague enough, I think. He left feedback on a bunch of military stuff, and I left like what hotkeys you want, and I left feedback on a bunch of economic stuff. It was basically like the opposite type of feedback. When we had access initially. Love your runs, Generalist. Thank you so very much. What do you think of Lithuania's starting position? Lithuania is Lithuania in here? I think Lithuania is like more to the south, right? Or am I going crazy? Lithuania is like in here, right? Or no, wait, Lithuania is up and to the right. Yeah, maps are hard. So, flatland. You have this wetland kind of choke, so you're going to bump up against that, and then you can maybe run something through here. The rivers really matter, but forest, oof. So if you have your capital up here, the forest is going to be kind of a barrier for you, like, establishing a lot of control. You can overcome it, but in terms of the resources, the resources around here are significantly worse. Taking a look at Russia, and when we looked at Ukraine, the resources just generally seem really underwhelming. That's how you identify the Carthage player. Can't find Alexandria, basically. How strong is Yuan? Yuan is, if you exclude maybe things that would be considered cheese, Yuan is probably the strongest country. Little bro needs glasses, not like this. I can't read, reading's hard. Control F type Poland. Man, I'm a little behind on the chat, I apologize. Our terrain affect gameplay a lot? Yes. it really strongly affects how like good a power base you can build in an area. The flatland is like really important for control, and then like also it matters militarily, but just having a much bigger stick than the guy is still more useful. Is blobbing still meta? No, I don't think so. I think blobbing is like anti-meta. Well, blobbing is good, but you blob with subjects. Blobbing yourself, I think, is like actively bad. Like, not only is it like not that good, I think it's actively bad. And you're just like looking to have a strong power base that you like build around. I was trying to figure out what you guys were like responding to. The dam and the whole eight. Yeah, the squat. I can also bench press 200 pounds, but that's going to be a lift no one knows. Not bench press, but bench press. I guess we could show it on stream. That's where you get weight over your head with one hand. Of course, gotta mute the audio. But this is weight overhead with one hand. This is 200 pounds. So like 92 kilo. So that might be more impressive than the squat. It's probably not. But I don't really know. What really strong resource combination in your opinion? Just stuff that has really high base prices is kind of the biggest thing. But also, wood is actually valuable, even though it has like a base price of 1. I don't think these are updated base prices. But these were the base prices that they gave in the Tinto talk. Just having as much gold, silver, and spices as possible is really good. Marble's important because it's an input that gets used for upgrading buildings, so marble punches above its weight. But yeah, basically everything that is here and above is insanely good, and it's less about having combinations, I think. Gems are also better because they get traded much better, and dyes are important because they're an input for one of the better industries and the clothing and stuff. And wool, if we take a look at some of this food stuff, wool specifically is an input for clothing industry and has the highest base price of the food producing stuff. And so as far as this goes, either wool is the best or rice is the best, because rice is really efficient. Livestock's also okay, but these three are the best foodstuffs. If you have 0 food stuff, you're gonna have a bad time, so you definitely want some of it. New Anbanar update announced, did anyone see? I think we're going to be covering that in Mod Jam next week. I don't know my squat, but I could do 4 reps of 1018 on a linear press. Effective weight is only 735, but linear press is easier than squatting. Yeah, I mean, like, you talk about, like, leg press. It's difficult to compare because the range of motion is also different. So lumber, stone for EU5, the same as wood, iron from Vic 3. No, not stone, masonry, which can be built from either... Sorry, let's get into map mode that's maybe a little bit better. Which can be built from either clay or stone. And generally, clay and stone aren't squeezed. Lumber gets squeezed a lot. This is something I left feedback on. Lumber is under high pressure. The UI hasn't been showcased in any of the Tinto talks, right? Nope. So only the people who've seen it were able to give... only people... Well, people can give feedback based on what they see in terms of what people made videos on for the UI. Can you really not just trade for lumber? Not really. The way that the prices work, it being produced in your own market is really important. And you can't flood your own market with lumber very easily, because the burgers, if you run a surplus of lumber, your burgers traded away. So it's difficult to just import lumber to collapse the price of it. Can I ask what Norway's like? Yeah. Norway's rough, if I recall. You're going to have territory that's in the Arctic. Arctic is like the only climate that's bad. And you have this massive mountains and hills. And like you're going to have this little pocket of grassland in the Arctic. Or I guess you're oceanic. And like the amount of territory you have that's like kind of okay is like very, very low. And then you don't even have the payoff of having like really good mineral resources. So Norway's really rough. I think Norway's... in terms of the Europe, and looking at the terrain and this type of stuff, it might be just like the actual worst. Really hope terrain isn't as powerful as Imperator. It's kind of... It affects where you're going to get a lot out of your power base a lot. Blobbing is bad until it's not, and it gets to that point. Well, it's like, at a certain point, you're powerful enough that you can do whatever you want to do, right? And at that point where you can do whatever you want to do, if you want to do blobbing, you could just do that. 200? Yep. It's fine to be behind on chat. You're trying to respond to all the big questions. I am. You can lift me one-handed. A person is... So actually, one-handed, if it's sitting in the hand, your lever is extended as long as possible. If you're doing a person with that lift, generally a lot of their weight will rest on your forearm, which makes the lever shorter, which makes differences in movement less important. You can generally actually lift heavier if you're lifting a person with that lift, is my understanding. But also, I'm not a fan of trying to lift people if it's close. Like, if it's close to, like, my max, I'm not interested in trying to lift a person like that, because I don't want to drop a person. Do you think they should let you use more stone as a replacement for wood in construction? Yes, this is a piece of feedback that I left. I think that, RGO input should be a combination of stone, clay, and wood, and maybe to a lesser extent sand. And you could still have wood be the most important, but I think it should be a balance of the thing. Because, look, if you're in Egypt, they didn't build wood buildings, they built clay buildings, and they got along just fine, man. You know, the fact that you don't have access to wood, to me, is like, it's bad from both a simulation perspective, or that wood is omni-important, and, like, a lack of wood is punishing for the Mamluks, is bad for both a simulation perspective, in my opinion, and a balance perspective. / gameplay perspective. We have no more people room in this for people in the city because of the forest. Sire, should we cut down? My lord, what? It's not possible. Yeah, I think eventually deforestation and reforestation will be a mechanic, but it's not right now. Also, I think creation of farmland is going to be a thing eventually, but I just think that they're not going to do it by release. It definitely seems something they're interested in. Leg press, I can max out the machine at 220 kilo. That's pretty good. The conversion is like... The conversion is tough for leg press, because if you focus on leg press specifically, the range of motion's smaller, and you don't have to do any supporting muscle stuff, and so... I don't know. Sometimes people tell me they could squat several, like, 600-700 pounds, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And then they, like, describe it, and then I realize they're talking about a leg press, and then I'm like, never mind. Because, like, leg pressing 600 or 700 pounds and squatting 600 or 700 pounds, I think if you could squat 600-700, in, like, that neighborhood, you can almost certainly leg press over 1,000. Of course, Norwegian's gonna be rough. Gotta give Sweden an easy conquest. Yeah, Sweden looks sweet, though. That's, like, kind of the flip side of it, huh? Sweden... You have iron, in one of the Tinto talks they show that they have the copper with 250% output, which makes the copper better than gold, except for copper's price tends to be higher than gold, or their price relative to base price tends to be higher than gold's price relative to base price. So that's just absolutely obscene. You have the iron, and like you also have like a decent looking kind of area in terms of creating like control propagation, where you have this coastal area. You're going to have the Baltics. You have some farmlands. It's got a little bit of vegetation you don't like, but it's flatlands, coast, like this type of thing. Sweden looks very solid, which is, and it's continental, not Arctic. You expand into the Baltics, you establish a lot of control. Sweden looks so much better. As Norway, I think you just ignore 2/3 of your nation and try and get naval control. As Norway, I think you just conquer Sweden and then you start playing like Sweden. Yeah. How many runs have you done going into the 1800s or late 1700s? None. I have like lower end on the PC specs, and it's a little bit rough for me to get deep. And also, if you're playing like an economic knit and you're like micromanaging everything, it takes way longer to play. So I have more hours, but I also have like a dozen runs going into like 1500. So I'm playing a lot of different countries rather than trying to play super deep. Will you talk about the Netherlands lowlands? Just came back from dinner. Yeah, let's take a little bit of a look. So we did play as Holland, and initial expansion was a little bit rough, but then once we got going, it was super easy. But we actually moved our capital twice as Holland. We moved our capital once to Dordrecht, so we moved it from Amsterdam down to here, and then we moved it from here down to Antwerp. Later, we kept the market capital in here. We maybe could have moved it, but I think it didn't make sense with like the way our setup was, and then having it there was a little bit better. And then from here, it was easy to propagate control down into here, which is because our territory was like a triangle. It was easier to propagate towards this, and then coastally, we propagated control with the navy. So, in terms of provinces, like this is 5 or 6 locations. This is 5 or 6 locations. These were one of the better ones to dev. Forget where Antwerp is. So Antwerp is in here. We dev'd this province and this province to help it make it easier to run in here, but eventually got into this hills farmland area, or hills area, that was really hard to push control past. So really the control kind of baseline was really, really good here, and then moving through multiple hills significantly put a damper on things. But this is the nuts, is that you have really a lot of farmlands here. The marshland isn't all that great. As Holland, you have stuff that makes it not so bad, but it's still net worse than flatland. You'd prefer flatland to marshland, even with the polders improvement. Polders just move it much closer in line. But this land's super good. Yeah, I was hoping to play Norway and take advantage of historical lumber export advantage. Yeah, exporting lumber is not that great because the base price of lumber is extremely low. So it's really important to have in your own market, but at the same time, it's actually not a valuable resource. It's kind of this weird situation. What are the requirements to make your own market? Gold. And why wouldn't a country want to have their own market? The more markets you have, the worse your overall access to resources is going to be, and the less efficient your trade's going to be, just generally speaking. Because more markets is better for goods balance, just generally speaking. And if your goods are more balanced, you can run more trade without having to try and fix your goods balance. So there's like multiple pressures. There's pressures to have fewer markets and pressures to have one market. Yeah, leg press is not a squat. Nope. And it's really difficult to translate because someone can leg press 1,000 pounds and only squat 400, and someone could leg press 1,000 and like squat 600. Actually, if you squat 600, you're almost certainly like leg pressing more than 1,000. But yeah, it isolates the quads and glutes a lot more than squats from your experience, and like the supporting muscles like becomes like irrelevant. By release, you say? 2025 release semi-confirmed? Nope. Haven't confirmed shit. For reference, I could deadlift 150 kilo. That's pretty good. That's like significantly higher than average. I have like strength dysmorphia though. Whenever like I think about my own lifts, I'm like, man, because like I follow some of the strongest people in the world on Instagram, right? And I'm just like, wow, that I'm barely ahead of Jessica Bittner in like deadlift. Except she's just like probably the best female deadlifter in the world. She like deadlifts close to 600 pounds, and 600 pounds is my deadlift. She's gonna hit 600 pounds. Yeah, if I don't increase my deadlift, she's gonna deadlift more than me. There's like, I'm on like the very cusp of being really close to being stronger than every woman alive. There's like, I think 2 women who are stronger than me or something like this. Like one that has close to a 700, or like, I think there's like one woman who like squats more than me. Or like, it's suit versus non-suit. I guess I could look this up. I think there's like 1 or 2 women that squat more than me. Women generally struggle on bench relative to men, but my bench is really bad. My lifts in terms of proportion kind of look like a woman's. I only bench like 350, so I like squat like double my bench. I don't think I would conquer Sweden as Norway, just try and build up and become a good diplomat and stay alive. I think it's probably worth conquering and moving. Let's take a look at the resources here on these guys. So the resources, the thing that struck me about the Netherlands is your resources, just generally, not very good. You have salt, and that's kind of your better resource, and you have it in several places. You have a little bit of pearls, and you have some mineral resources down here, but overall, your resources weren't that great, and one of the things we struggled with was all our lumber was in one spot, and we had like a market up here and a market down, and so during various times in the run, the lumber was split entirely in one of the market or the other, which made things a little bit complicated. How many hours do you have now, and would you say the game is getting more fun over time? So I can't comment on the difference between the version I received before or after. So I can't comment on how fun the game is in the abstract. I would say that my first 50 hours were probably the most fun, just because generally I think your first 50 hours in a game tends to be the most fun. And then I would say that as I've understood the game better, the game gets more fun. Excluding like the first 50 hours or whatever. How's playing as Ming? I wouldn't know. I've only played as Yuan. Are you able to... Oh, are you able to switch them? Are they powerful? Yeah, you get the option to switch to Ming if you want. And then they have like China flavor. Is HRE ununitable in the game yet? Yes. Could you import lumber and then ban exporting it? No, you can't ban the export. Otherwise, yeah, otherwise this is what you would do as everyone, is you would just, you would eat the cost of getting lumber super cheap as everyone. Strap for Ireland, unify it. And then probably, I guess we could take a close look at their resources a little bit. But I think that, the strategy is going to be moving stuff to Great Britain and taking out Great Britain. It looks like this is going to be the pocket that you have, and that you could do some naval propagation to here and look to push into the British Isles at some point. In terms of the resources, the tin's kind of okay. Generally speaking, kind of weak on the resources. Some of your better stuff is the salt and the marble, which is like on the back line of where you would want to put your capital, I think. I think you want your capital in like here-ish. I think you have your own market though, so moving the market capital there is fine. It makes a bit of sense. You're probably going to lean naval, but then like expansion, you're either going to have to go into the UK or go into France or go into the Netherlands. If you want to actually be able to have control then. And then once you, if you go into the UK, yeah, I mean, here's a fine place for the capital. If you like conquer the entire UK though, I think the UK kind of has a better place for a capital, and then you start looking like you're playing like the UK again. How do I reclaim land in the Netherlands? Slowly. There's a polder improvement. And it's kind of okay, but you can build it on marshes, it doesn't overcome your disadvantages. Hey, journalist, how's your injury you got? I haven't been going to the gym that much. I went to the gym like a week and a half ago. I've been super swamped and busy. In fact, I'm busy today, which is why the stream has to be short. But it seems kind of okay, but I'm not going to push it. I don't think I'm going to do cleans, like, to the thing, because it was supporting muscle, like, attaching to my collarbone or something like this, or ligaments or something that was hurt. I don't think I'm going to do cleans for, like, at least another 6 months, if maybe ever again. I think it's, like, maybe not worth, but I was able to squat and bench press just fine. I went to the gym and I did squat, bench press, and, like, rows. Nothing too crazy, because I knew that my body was, like, not gonna have a good time. In fact, I had a panic attack, like, warming up for squat, which was my first lift. I get panic attacks when I go to the gym a lot, though. And, like, working out while you're having a panic attack is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Are you the world's strongest Paradox gamer? OPB was in here and was suggesting that Koifish was stronger than me. I don't know how strong Koifish is. Maybe he's stronger. I think it's probable that OPB was joking and that I'm kind of just stronger, but I don't really know. I bet you're better at Vic 3 than any woman. That might be true. I wouldn't want to say that. I think that being someone who's in the public eye and good at a game is different than actually just, like, being as good at it as possible. The activity of making content for the game and making tutorials for the game and this type of thing is different than the activity of getting as good at the game as possible. And so if someone were focused as getting as good at the game as possible, they would be able to, like, Great Britain's resources are so much better than Ireland's. Ireland's like mono livestock and wheat almost, and I think wool is just a lot better. But yeah, the being good at it and making videos on it or making content on it are two different activities. And I haven't, like, tried to be, like, I also don't care about, like, being, like, the best at Vic 3 or something like this. Really that much. I mean, I guess I care a little bit, but... can you speak on the mission trees in EU5? No. Is it possible to not infect Japan as one continent like Greenland? I think it's theoretically possible. You have to make sure no one else is in your market, though, I think. And then isolate your market and stop doing trades. You have dyes right now instead of pearls? Dyes instead of pearls? I guess we have copper down here. Copper's good. I think tin is kind of the harder... No, not tin. Is it tin? I know what color it is. It's like this brownish color. It's like one of the harder ones to get. You have dyes now instead of pearls in the lowlands? Oh, that's right. There's like dyes here, I think. For whatever reason, the fish is also a different color. It's the color of wheat instead of the color of fish. I currently bench around 70 kilo, working towards 100, so my numbers are like 220 leg press, 150 deadlift, 70 bench, 60k overhead. Wow, your overhead's so close to your bench. That's crazy. My overhead is like 2/3 of my bench or something. Can you ask what Denmark's like? Well, let's take a quick look. I think Denmark is also just going to be worse than Sweden. Like Sweden, but bad. You see a lot of flatlands. Flatlands promising. Ooh. All farmland and grassland. That's incredible. Also, from a naval perspective, Denmark's going to be pretty good here. We do see we have a little bit of oceanic with our continental. So the question is, how's the resources for Denmark? And that's not the be-all end-all. Netherlands had bad resources, but we thought it was pretty solid. Looks like the resources aren't that great. It's kind of hard to see. We have like wheat, medicaments, fish. Yeah, actually just stone terrible resources. We don't even have lumber. You just have a couple salts. Yeah, so really, really bad on the resources, but the terrain and this type of stuff seems great. And then you're just gonna go super naval anyway, right? So you have like kind of a nice base for industry with the farmland, grassland, and flatland. You probably have no rivers, but you probably don't care because it's all about naval. And so where you have your capital, though, you're gonna start looking down more into Germany. Like what Germany looks like is actually gonna matter a lot for Denmark, because some of your land extends into Germany here, right? And the question is probably, do you want your capital on this side or on this side? Because that's a meaningful difference. And I don't think there's a river that cuts through. I think the best bridge territory is like here to the Hansa. So the best place to cut across is here. And then also there's a place you can navally cut across, like kind of in the northern portion. I think that this is the better cut, is from Lübeck to like Bremen down here is the shortest distance to travel, and I think there's like a river in one of these locations, and I think this is 2 locations, something like this. So is the importance of lumber fundamental, or just because of trick crashing price? Yes, the importance of lumber is fundamental because almost every RGO is built out of lumber, and so collapsing the price of lumber makes it so your RGOs cost 1/3, and so it triples the value of your gold to RGO ratio. So, can resources change mid-game? There are some mechanics for changing some resources, but I don't think it's like a wild and prolific thing. Is naval access good enough to get at the salt and marble? Yeah, but it's like more of a long-term thing. You don't get good naval infrastructure until like 80 to 100 years into the game. So it's a little bit slow. But eventually you get it, yeah. Did you manage to colonize the New World? I colonized like every single one of my games. What's the dynamic between Metropolis and the Colonial Nation? Colonial Nation has like 0 development. And is not very valuable in terms of producing buildings, generally 0 infrastructure, and is all about RGOs. You don't have a lot of pops, and the way that you solve the pop problem is through slavery, and so it's a combination of, it's basically about having enough trade range to start getting slaves to the New World to make use of all the RGOs, and then importing the RGOs back. Because the RGO price in the New World will basically be nothing, and then you get all the value from importing it. And then eventually, as the New World nations grow, my assumption is that they start to claw back a lot of their own value just by virtue of growing, and that a lot of this like falls off. It seems like it takes quite a long time to get value out of the New World, but I think that the amount of time it takes is basically however long it takes you to start getting slaves there. Because a lot of the New World stuff you grab, you have 1,000 pops, you need 1,000 pops to work at RGO, you need to get more pops there. The only way to get more pops there, you can't wait on 1 or 2% growth on a baseline of 1,000 pops, so you have to do like slavery. I really just do incline bunch. My calculated 1 rep max is 270, so based on multiples, I assume you mean by that? I really ought to do regular bench and see where I'm at. That's the lift like everyone cares about, but I'm not enamored with it. Sometimes when people ask what do you bench, I just respond with what I squat. Oddly enough, no one's ever complained that I didn't answer their question. Which is crazy, which is crazy to me. You just straight up don't answer someone's question. And then they're just like, wow, that's a lot. Oh, this is updated Germany. We didn't look at updated Germany. So this is what we were talking. Mittelmark is like 10 or 11 locations. Berlin's right here. And there's a river that goes here, and there's a river that goes here. And so this, in terms of, it just like seemed absolutely bananas in terms of your ability to get a whole bunch of control. Neuenmark also probably has a lot of locations, and same with Lüneburg Heath for using Dev Province. But yeah, so it's like in the middle of Brandenburg. And so for building a power base, I think Brandenburg is actually really, really good. And then here's like this north-south divide. So you have Mittelmark / Brandenburg in here. You get a ton of control, and basically this entire area, really easy to propagate control. You get bricked basically by the hills. Because one hill is not a lot to go through, but this is like several locations thick of hills. You really won't be able to propagate control to the other side. But also, South Germany is just significantly worse in terms of building a power base. And like, I guess one of the problems with Boho is that you're like stuck in your ring. You're not going to really push out because you don't have... I guess there might be rivers that can overcome the hills. So maybe that's not true, but... you're not getting through this, though. Mountains is, like, way too hard to, like, get through. Kind of started streaming Stellaris. No plans to continue. There's too much other stuff going on right now. Return of the King. Hey, man, how's it going? Are things good? Really excited for EU5. Same. I like how much more robust the economics are than EU4. Yeah, they look way more robust than EU4. In terms of resources, terrain, climate, etc., where in the US looks better? The north, south? Let's take a look. In the United States specifically, I think South America generally looks better. And Central America. Mainly because the resources are way better. North America's resources are kind of booty. Nils J92, thank you for the follow, Big Dice. So here we have, in terms of what we have going on, I assume that the Mississippi is actually really solid for propagating control. And just knowledge of US geography, somewhere in here is probably a decent place for building a power base, because if you put your capital on a wetlands, that's actually not bad, because you're not having to travel through the wetlands. So this might be a good place for a capital, and then you get access to the Mississippi. There's also decent resources like kind of up here, if I recall correctly, and then here's kind of medium, but you could have it down in there. And then taking a look, we see that it's like all woods. So propagating control is really, really rough through the woods unless you have rivers. One of the reasons why we're kind of a fan of the Mississippi. But there's like no farmlands. And this has been like kind of one of the complaints is like you could turn a lot of this into farmlands. It's just not farmlands at game start. And you can also deforest it. And this land would get a lot better if there was dynamic forestation like mechanics. Top players need to congratulate and share ideas to push games boundaries, so you provide a good service. Thank you. Yeah, I doubt there's a Paradox gamer stronger overall. Some people just neglect legs. Those people never seen plus 500 on squat, let alone 600. Yeah, there's like a StarCraft player who could bench 400. Marshmallow Baker, thank you for the follow, Big Dice. Joe Pro, hey, thank you for the 15 months. Big Dice. I think you and Zack Attack, I think, are the two longest subs. I haven't seen Zach in a hot minute because I haven't been streaming. Thank you so very much. Big nice. Did Paradox ever offer you a job? No. Theorycrafting? Yeah, basically. I fell into the trap of thinking you're actually playing EU5? Sucker. That's how we get them. Grasslands is going to be nice. So I guess if you're going to playing in Texas is going to be like probably actually just the best. But yeah, we can't play this. Also, you got like flatlands here, so this is actually probably the best area. But this is like kind of like saying, yeah, you should just play in Central America. I think the best resources are down there too. We have harbors, so this is like the Northeast is also like one of the good reasons for playing that is the harbors, but also like Louisiana, you have like a good harbor. So I think Louisiana is probably a good shout. Where is this? Oh, this is the other coast. Yeah, maybe California is okay. The thing is when we get to the resources, you'll see what I mean by saying when I say North America is weak. And I think like some of this is going to change, like dynamically over time. But it's like all wild game and like food stuff and like fruit, clay, legumes. Like all these resources are just like bad. The stuff that's good is cotton and tobacco. And to be fair, the tobacco's like quite good, but tobacco's not as good as like chili, the spices. Which playthrough of what tag was the most fun you had? I had a lot of fun playing India and Netherlands in this last kind of batch. Also, I mean, the ones that where I've played deep are the ones I was having the most fun. So Korea, Mali, Milan, India, and Netherlands. How would you play Estonia? Estonia is Baltics, right? We'll come back to the USA really quick, because we already looked at the Baltics. But Estonia is like... Well, I hate to accidentally put it in the wrong... Estonia is like in here or in here, right? I forget which... But I think you just, like, you play them more navally. You have, like, flatland, which is, like, solid, and then some farmlands up here and here. If you're up here, you're, like, pretty happy to play with a power base in the farmlands and then use naval to, like, kind of try and rule the coast. Okay, so this is Estonian. Yeah, so this is going to be the better looking place. But it's going to be, like, naval orientation. Your resources are pretty bunk, though. You have a ton of wood, which is nice, but the wood past a certain point stops being useful, and you like basically have just wood. There's copper over here, which is good. Iron. But if you play like navally and you look at it, you expand into here, and you want to keep your capital over here, you're going to be able to get pretty good control into this amber and this type of stuff, and then probably be able to expand into Sweden and this type of thing. Sweden's probably going to be a better location of the capital. You could move cap eventually, though. Some fish are yellow? Yeah, so they use the coloration that is used in game for most of these, but sometimes they just don't. As Aztecs, would you also want to import slaves? Probably. I think the thing is you cause a lot of unrest, but I think eventually you import slaves and then you accept them, and then that frees them, and then you just have a bunch of pops. Yeah, but the resources here, let's show like Central America and South America, and you can see like what it is that we mean when we say that like North America just sucks. So the terrain's going to be worse in Central. I think subtropical's like ideal, but yeah, look, the terrain's terrible, but like you can just propagate, you can play naval on the coast. The terrain's like really not like the end of the world, but yeah, the terrain is rough. You'll probably be looking to want to play maybe here or like here or something like this, but let's look at Paul Allen's resources again. Vegetation also rough. And so, like, at first blush, you're like, this is terrible. What do you mean, generalist? What do you mean this is good? Cocoa is good. Gold is good. We know there's a ton of gold in here. There's gems, marble, marble, marble. Marble's really good. There's gold, gold, gold. The density of really good resources here is extremely high. So maybe and you can have like your industrial like zone up here, and then you get to utilize all these resources at a pretty good rate. We have silver down here as well, gold, lumber. Gonna be a lot of gold here. I think overall South America is a little bit better, but yeah, silver, silver, gold, gold. Like the resources, ton of really, really good resources here. And then for all these populations, just multiply them by 0.05, because that's what's gonna happen. The truth hurts. So we have relatively little. I was hoping to see more Inca, but So we're gonna skim through this and get to like the terrain and this type of stuff. Are these provinces? So there's like one province in here that's like ginormous. It might be Avai. I think it's this one we're thinking of, where it's a ton of locations, which would maybe be an okay place for a capital if you wanted to play in that like region. Having all tropical, I think tropical is not exactly ideal. Sea zones seem pretty well to contain resources like fish or whales. Would be interesting vying for sea resources where borders are not hard. Let me cool you down. Is Paradox games? Okay, wait. How will we dig the Canal? I don't think you can. Can you expel 1,000 minorities in the New World? I can't remember. You could colonize from a place that's minority dense. I don't know if you can send specifically the minorities. Are there colony rebellions? Eventually there's mechanics that cause them to be more rebellious, and eventually they'll start to actually gain some strength. They're completely feckless against you early on, though. Current feelings on Vic 3? Specifically how much content the game has compared to other Paradox games. Well, so, like, Vic 3 is more about sandbox than content. The content level's, like, really low, yeah. But that's not where they're trying to win. Release date prediction? I can't talk about this. Can you technically avoid using slavery in the New World? You can. It would be bad. I think slavery is really strong. I think if you're not going to use slavery, you should just, like, it's not worth the investment. You just shouldn't do it. Fire on Twitch, but also on YouTube. But watching on YouTube, ayo. France is probably really dope to propagate. Absolutely. They have a ton of flatland and they have a ton of rivers. Yeah, France just feels super good. The StarCraft player you're thinking about is in control. Unfortunately, passed a couple years ago. Oh, that is a bummer. But also, I guess he can't bench more than me now. Grim. That is unfortunate. Yeah, he benched, like, I think he, like, played for, like, Liquid or something. He's just absolutely insane bench. Take a look here. We have, like, I guess you're probably going to either want to be playing up here or down here. And it's going to feel relatively polarized. You don't want to be in all this forest and jungle in terms of where your capital is. Or you can be playing up here. So, kind of really segmented into 3 areas. Or I suppose, on this coast. But sparse is not quite as good. Natural harbors, we have a ton. But in here is going to be one here, and remember Argentina and up here are kind of where we have good bases, and also up here. I think Colombia overall has the best resources, or the best resource density. If I recall correctly, they have like so much gold. Yeah, this is multiple things of gold. We have gems, we have a little bit of lumber, which is good. Cocoa, pearls, salt, all very strong. And look at all this gold. Gold. So you have your capital in here or something, you get all this gold and gems, like, it's just absolutely insane. In my own taxes, it was super dope. Also just play dual monarchy kind of scenario because you can propagate control on France for most of the British Isles pretty easy. Yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of a vibe as well. Narnak, thank you for the follow. Big dice. All right, we'll go another 15 minutes because there's so many of you guys here. But then we have to work on something else. I'm setting a timer so I can be disciplined and not stream for 5 hours. Are the natives any good? Do they get plagued on first contact? They get plagued on first contact and lose 95% of their pops. It just like has to be like it's just like you have to be a masochist, I think, for that to seem like good. Oh, also, we didn't even notice gold in here too. Gold, yeah, just resources are insane. And then in here in Brazil, remember like kind of in here was really good amount of like grassland and this type of stuff, and then we have a bunch of gold. Not as quite as dense, but the gold stretches all the way into here. Probably going to be hard to, like, be here and get a lot of control in here, but you can still, you know, get the resources and trade them and this type of thing. If there's a river that flows through here, maybe it's kind of okay. Shouldn't the New England area have some sugar as well? Yeah, Florida should maybe have some sugar. The thing is, sugar was introduced. I don't think it was native. And maybe there's I think there's a mechanic for changing the resources of the New World, but like the resources like on Game Start are just like awful. For the Inca, we have a bunch of gold and silver, if I recall correctly. There's gold, silver, iron. The thing is, the terrain for the Inca is really, really rough. So you're basically going to be just like seafaring and then pushing a little bit of control in. We do have a couple more gold over here. Marble, salt, silver. So pretty good looking stuff, just like not the best terrain. And then here, a lot less density of good resources, but the land, remember, here is like, you have like farmland, grassland, like this type of stuff. The land itself is a lot better. I think you have a river heading in too. So in terms of like the actual terrain type of stuff, you're looking pretty strong here, but these resources just aren't very good. It's basically just the salt, eh? Yeah, not the best. Is Japan easy to integrate with all that coastline? Its resources seem quite similar to Korea's. Its resources are nowhere near Korea's. Korea just has the most obscene like resource density. You can take a look though. I think that this isn't going to be updated. We're getting the updated version of this next week, I think, but we can take a look. Like, Korea is just, like, unambiguously the best resources. But yeah, you could have, in terms of terrain, you probably want the capital... Actually, you probably want the capital in here, and you want to go after Korea, and that's going to make it best. The hard part is, it's quite a ways to go around into the other side for either of these on Japan, and you can't cut through the middle very easily, because you have to go through the mountains. So, it's going to be hard to get control in here and here simultaneously. Whereas Korea, there's way fewer locations you have to go through to wrap around. And it's easier to go through because there's not as much mountain. Like, the mountains are the most inconvenient spot. In terms of this, also looking at this, forest is a little bit rough. But again, you're going to do it navally. But in terms of the place that looks the best place to put a power base, that's here. It's just, here isn't going to help you put control into Korea, so maybe it's even here you want your cap? Subtropical is good, though. Subtropical is better, you won't have to deal with the winters. Technically, I think the winters can be economically stimulating, because when construction gets paused, I think the buyers still go through on the construction, and so it stimulates the construction goods economy. But also makes it harder to collapse prices. I don't know exactly what's good. Is there a dependence ratio like Pops and Victoria 3? No. No. Victoria 3 has way more pop granularity. Did it change the Mediterranean from being the best climate? Nope, it's still the best. Most people on the forums wanted it to be subtropical. Nope, Mediterranean's the best as far as I know. Islam, TikTok Dev Diary got 128 thumbs down, 70 thumbs up, or 120 thumbs up, 70 thumbs down. I haven't looked at it. I understand it's controversial, though. Congo was one of my faves in EU5. How's it looking here? Let's take a look through this and maybe focus a little bit less on the comments because we have about 10 minutes left. Natural harbors, we got some good ones here. So if we have cap here, we could spread it to this stuff maybe a little bit easier. So maybe cap here is like kind of the location you want it. Doesn't matter if we put cap on wood. Can we get something a bit more zoomed in for resources? No, we can't. Okay. But yeah, gold, silver, spices, really high density, and then here we have a lot of fish, rice, lumber, stone. There's gold here, gold here, gold here, and we have some silk and some gold. I guess your resources do look pretty good as Japan, but it's not anywhere near as dense. I'm not seeing the spices on either. Or so here's saffron. Is this saffron as well? It's so hard to tell. Yeah, maybe Japan's also pretty solid. In terms of the AI, when we've watched, we've seen Korea outperform Japan really hard. I think Korea is, in the hands of the AI, Korea might be the, like, most overperforming nation. Have you played as Horde? We've not. That dude was swole. Yeah. In control. Okay, let's take a quick look at Congo. And then this will probably be the last one we look at. That's not what we're looking for. That's what we're looking for. So not a lot of countries here at the start. Taking a look, we've colonized in here recently. I don't know if any of these provinces have a ton of locations in them. This is something you care about. But Congo here is specifically what we're trying to look towards. We have this flatland area on the coast, and then kind of trajectory into plateau. Plateau's not as good for spreading control as flatlands, but it's not terrible. So you can probably set something up here and look to snake through here, especially if there's a river along here, and kind of have a decent amount of control inland. Got some natural harbor stuff. But we want to take a look at resources, really. The resources, there's enormous, like, good density by Zimbabwe. I think that the resource density is not very good by Congo, if I recall correctly. Yeah, but you have some ivory and some gems, but that's going to be kind of the sum of it in terms of what you have going on. It's nice that you have the lumber. Like, your lumber density is pretty nice, where it's not, like, overwhelmingly lumber, but you have, like, a good chunk of it. But, like, the place that's, like, absolutely insane is around Zimbabwe. I think this is the highest gold density place on the map in terms of, like, locations to gold locations ratio. Yeah. How important are natural harbors for development and capital selection? They're pretty important. Do you have high hopes for the late game? My concern is that the game has a lot of granularity. My concern is that stuff gets CTH the Dead. Thank you for the follow, Big Nice. I'm concerned that the late game starts to get, like, a lot of tedious and a lot of clicking. And this is one of the concerns I have for the game. Also, performance a little bit. I haven't gotten that deep, so... I do like that what's important seems to shift, and it's dynamic, and that stuff changes over time, and it's not just like you're playing the same game for 500 years, but the game you're playing changes with combination of technology and the ages. I'm really excited about that. I do have a couple concerns on the late game front, though. Does colonization in the Americas feel different than Asia and Africa? Yes. Asia and Africa... America's, a lot of the colonization, there's no one there. In Africa, a lot of the colonization, there's a ton of people there, which makes it more expensive and it takes longer to colonize. So colonizing Africa is generally not going to be as good, and also you have to deal with malaria. There's a building that helps with malaria, but you can only put it on the coast. So Africa feels a lot more about exploiting the people who are already there and establishing, like, trade posts on the coast. And America actually feels a bit like you're, like, trying to colonize, like, big chunks of it. So the vibe is much different, I would say. Yeah, this is just, like, absolutely insane on the resources front. Do you think they let you talk about the loud cars outside? Absolutely. As Portugal is better to move your capital to Brazil? I mean, Brazil's land is probably better. I guess maybe it would make sense. The thing is, you're probably not going to have a lot of pops there, and you're probably not going to have... all your economy is going to be back in Portugal, and if you wanted to build up an enormous economy in Brazil, by the time you're like it would be so inefficient to be in the building phase. I don't think there's a good way to transition. Like, in theory, the capital is better in Brazil, but I think that the transition just doesn't make sense. Where would you put your capital? You're playing Inca? Here, let's just open a new one. Although we kind of already talked about this, maybe we shouldn't be using our last few minutes here like this. But the Inca, I don't know if it matters all that much. Probably just closest to the area where you have like the most flatland available, because it's a lot of it's just going to be about. Ooh, Arctic is rough. A lot of it's just going to be you're just playing like navally, and it's like all kind of coastal, and it's it's just like all flatland and like this type of thing. So I guess it's going to be kind of near like some of the other resources. I guess you don't want to be near the desert, so it's probably up here. Which is to say, you want it close to Colombia. Maybe the natural harbor here. I think your outgoing harbor matters. Let's double check that we didn't just like, okay, we didn't accidentally like snooze our thing. Yeah, so I guess it's probably up here. But the answer, the as close to Colombia as possible, might be a little bit unsatisfying, eh? Yeah, you have some gold in, yeah, you have a lot of gold in here as well. But that's like, it's a little like saying, yeah, put it by Colombia. But then like the resource density, as we kind of get down in here, we have gold, silver, and this type of stuff. But a lot of it's just like, oh, I guess there are impassable mountains. It has to be at a place where there's an opening and an impassable mountain, or further to the north here. So you see there's an opening here. There's an opening here. So it's going to be on one of these things. This place has like the most locations going on, and it has, you care most about going in most deeply. So maybe around where these legumes are would make sense, because you have some other stuff in here, and so you're going to be able to get to the control deeper here, because you're not going to have to go out from a port and then into a port, and then here you have to go out from a port and into a port, but you're not going that far inland. And so maybe the place that's closest to where you go deepest inland, so here would maybe make some sense, here would maybe make some sense, here would maybe make some sense, something like this, or up to the north. It's probably something like that. 400 hours in game is like 2 months of QA work. Yeah, effectively. And they get it for free, so... how many hours we have? We could actually bring this up. We have 369 hours. Happy Saturday, neutral good human. Mozambique's excellent, yeah. Province density versus development, which would you rather have? I mean, the two are correlated. If you have really high... I mean, if you have really high location density in provinces, then you're going to have really high dev. Or you mean having more provinces versus having more dev? I'd rather have more dev. I'd rather have more dev, but you can acquire dev. How many hours do you have in EU4? Like 1500, but they're all pre-Leviathan. I stopped playing on Leviathan. I bought Leviathan, I played a little bit, I refunded it, and I never bought another expansion. And didn't play EU4 again. Are empty spaces available for colonization at all? Nope. So you're really just playing mainly like this coastal naval thing, and where you put your capital is going to matter less for the Inca overall. Yeah, this is... there's not a lot of dev here, and I think there's a lot of jungle and stuff here too. If I recall correctly, it's not so far... Eventually you get far enough south that you don't have to deal with a lot of the jungle. And there's a ton of really good natural harbors. Plateau and flatland, which is pretty solid. But let's just kind of finish our thought in here, which is, I think there's a lot of tropical or jungle. If there's not a lot of jungle, it's actually just giga insane. But plateau's not ideal, but there's so much flatland here too. Like the Mozambique or Zimbabwe area or whatever. And here's Zimbabwe. You even have a little bit of dev. Zimbabwe actually might be really fun. I wanted to give them a try. Maybe I will. You have no power here, Gandalf Stormcrow. Yeah, so... I kind of want to... Let's not finish like this, where we don't see the climate when we want to see the climate. Okay, so this is the first one where they're going to have the climate and this type of stuff. So it's even subtropical. Subtropical is great. Or subtropical is split between cold and arid and this type of thing. I mean, we can live with a little bit of hills, so we're looking to play like in here and then extend up into here. And then it's woods. Woods is not that bad. Woods isn't that bad, and there's basically perma rivers everywhere here. So you get to undo the effect of wood. Yeah, it's just actually like an insane place to have. India, we were thinking, was actually insane because you get to do like triangle trade between Africa and Australia. Australia has insane resources, and you get to go for South Africa as well. It's just like also India's just a very nice location, like geographically speaking. Let's take a quick look at Australia, and then we'll be out of here. It's Oceania, right? So we're going to be mostly arid. Tropical, Oceanic's going to be the better spot. Mostly flatland. We got some mountainous terrain here. The really like key thing about Australia is like the resources are just super insane. So I think like India, in terms of like world map, is like one of the best locations. Do we really not have resources in here? Okay. These might not be updated, but there's like quite a bit of gold and valuable resources here. We see gold, coal. I think there's like more iron than this now. Yeah, but gold in a lot of places. But as a like colonial spot to go to, pretty solid. And it colonizes really fast. So, alright, let's catch up on chat and then we'll be out of here. Feels similar to IR? Yeah, IR was made by Johan, and that was his last game that he made, so it makes sense that it would look like IR. What are you going to play on day one? I don't know what I'm going to play on day one. I've already played like 300 something hours. The first nation I played was Mali. How bad is the Border Guard, the New World, compared to EU4? Border Guard doesn't seem that bad. But I don't have a frame of reference what EU4 looks like. That tiny coast of Madagascar has its own don't touch me sea zone. Yeah. That one guy says bye-bye. I think we're going to be saying bye-bye as well. Well, it was fun. A lot of you guys came out, so I guess we'll try and do another one of these at some point. How does slave trade work exactly? You export the good, and the good is both a pop and a... when you send the slave good, it sends corresponding pops along with them. And so you do it like the same way you trade goods, rather than like moving an army or this type of thing. But if you're on YouTube, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You know the YouTube algorithm thing. If you're on Twitch, we do have a YouTube. And other than that, we didn't even go... Well, actually, should we raid anyone? What's Karasak playing? I think Karasak's streaming in German, though. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll just get out of here because we got to get back to work. But have a good one, you guys. And then we will say end stream on the YouTube. And then we will...